I'm Jackie Doucette, and I'm on a mission to discover exactly what life is like beyond retirement. Join me while I chat with people who've already done it, who've retired to something rather than from something. Let's find out together exactly what's waiting for us when we say goodbye to that 9 to 5. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Retirement. Today, it's my privilege to be joined by Jesus Eduardo Campa, better known as Eddie. He was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and after 27 years of law enforcement, he's decided to retire from public service, and he transitioned his experience and his expertise into the private sector as a mentor, a consultant, and a sounding board. I think this is a fantabulous thing to do. He's an internationally and nationally accredited speaker on leadership development, strategic planning, culture change, culture diversity, customer service, community engagement, law enforcement, and security. I think you've got a huge offering to give everyone there. Eddie, welcome to Beyond Retirement.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited having a good conversation. And you know what? Retirement life is busier than actually working.
I've heard that from a lot of people. So let's start with how you made that transition from 27 years in the public service to working as a consultant. Did you take some time off, or did you just jump right in?
No, actually, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a workaholic. So, this is actually the second time I retired. I retired right at 20 years with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. I retired as the chief deputy. I retired and then went on to become the chief of police at Ector County in Marshall, Texas. And I did that for about 5 years. And then I thought I was done again. So I said, okay, I'm retired. I'm coming home. I came home, started working on a PhD, opened up one of my consulting companies, a security consulting firm, and decided that I wasn't done. So Oklahoma took me out there, and I became a state director for the Council on Law Enforcement Education and Training for 2 years. And December 20th of 2020, I decided I had enough, and it was time to just call it quits and end the chapter of law enforcement and come back and just do whatever it is that I wanted to do on my terms.
Oh, that's fabulous. I understand the taking the practice shots at retirement. I did the same thing. I retired after 20 years and came right back and did it again. But how do you transition from working so hard all your life like that, being so busy, into being your own boss?
Well, it was actually a very, I want to say smooth transition, because I was really tired of not living life on my own terms, not having a vision and not being able to move it forward because other people around me didn't understand that vision. In law enforcement, I've always kind of been the outliner, the weirdo, because of the way I think and the trajectory that I think. I've been preaching police reform since 1994. So when you have a guy who's about police reform and holding people accountable, a lot of people don't really like that. So it was a rough 27 years. So I was ready to make that easy transition. Now I'll tell you what was really hard is like I said, I'm a workaholic. So basically being tied up all the time was really hard letting go, because I found myself with a lot of free time, which wasn't really free time. It was just, I'm used to doing 6 or 7 things at one time, and it went down to doing 3 things at one time. So I had all this extra time, and it took a little bit of time to decompress. I didn't take any time off. I jumped right in. I just continued to go. So I'm kind of smoothing it out. I kind of I tell my wife now that I'm living life on I'm taking it easy term. And she's like, no, you're not. You're busier than most people. But I'm enjoying it. And, it keeps me young and it keeps me moving forward. I mean, a lot of people, they're like, you're 48 years old and you're retired twice. I'm like, yeah, well, what can I say?
But only sort of retired, because you're really working hard still.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I've got 2 companies that I run, and trying to finish up my PhD. So that's not really being retired, I guess.
But I guess for me, anyway, the idea of retired, what it means is you're doing the work you want to do, not the work you have to do.
Exactly. Like I said, now I'm doing things on my terms. Being your own boss, being in the private sector. It's your vision, it's your company. You got nobody to blame if things don't work out other than yourself. So that's a real positive thing. And my daughter just keeps walking back and forth behind me there. So
not a problem. It's a factor of life, right?
Right. Welcome to the world of Zoom.
So Eddie, do you think that people should be looking for some sort of transition work to help them get out, make the transition from their current job to what retirement is?
Absolutely. And here, and I'm sure it's like this in any sector. But the one thing that is common knowledge in law enforcement for police officers, police officers, they take on this identity. It's almost like, this is who I am: the badge, the gun, the power, the control, the authority. That's who I am. And when they retire and that's all kind of stripped away, a lot of people have a hard time letting go of that. And the life expectancy for a retired police officer is 5 years, 3 to 5 years. Because all of a sudden, they're no longer, and like I said, I'm sure it's like this with a lot of industries, but, as a police officer, you go to your shift briefings, you have your choir practices, you have your bonding, your family. Once you leave, you're gone. And that's the funny thing I always tell people is like, look, man, you can work your tail off for 25, 30, 35 years, and you may be the most important person there. 60 days after you're gone, they're going to say, who?
Yep. That's right.
And if you don't have something lined up, ready to go, you're just going to make yourself a life miserable. I've actually had a lot of people when I first left the sheriff's office, they used to tell me, they're like, so there is life after the sheriff's office? I'm like, yeah, bro, like a great life, and then I left, but I left to continue my career path, my growth as a chief of police. And after the second time, when I thought I was done, I was just like, this is who I am because I love being a public servant, but this is not what I want to be anymore, And I've always had an entrepreneur mindset. I've owned several businesses in the past. I like working for myself. I like making my own decisions. I don't like being told what to do all the time. And we've got in a world in law enforcement where we basically have to please everybody. And if you're trying to make everybody happy, if you're trying to make everybody happy, you're not going to make yourself happy. So I do recommend that, look, if you're nearing the age of retirement or your time frame of retirement, pick up a hobby, pick up something you want to do. Maybe as simple as writing a book. I mean, I've got a book coming out in July. I mean, it's just whatever you want to do, enjoy it, because now it's your time.
Exactly. And it's so true what you said. People identify with whatever it is, whatever profession they've got. And as soon as they step away from that, so many of them just have no idea what to call themselves, what to say they do. And that's heartbreaking to see people who feel lost because they don't have an identity of their own.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's sad. I see it all the time. I mean, I've got, I have a neighbor, he's been in law enforcement in the same agency that I was with. I left at 20. He's going on his year 32. And we were talking the other day and he's all like, I'm just afraid to leave. I'm like, afraid to leave? Why? So what am I going to do? I'm like, I don't know. What do you like to do? I like being a cop. I'm like, okay. I said, retire and go be a cop somewhere else. And I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. But he's really at that stage to where he's a cop. That's what he is. And you take that away from him, he has no idea what he is anymore.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about what you're doing now. You left your law enforcement job, but that hasn't gone out of you. Obviously, you're still trying to make a difference.
Right. So, I've had a company known as America's Best Strategic Security Group for, I don't know, it's probably been in business for at least 10 or 12 years. Formally, it's only been in business since 2017. And, we do security consulting, security surveys, we do personal protection, we provide security guards and things like that. And then in 2018, I started up because I didn't like the direction leadership was headed in. I opened up a company called Leading Through Adversity. And what Leading Through Adversity does is it kind of helps teach you and navigate you onto the platform that nobody ever talks about leadership. We've gotten to a point where I get it when you're in a customer service environment, you always say the customer is always right. Well, the customer is always right until the customer is wrong, and you can't run your business being afraid of making tough decisions that may affect the customer. I mean, at the end of the line, at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. And that's what was going on with leadership. I started seeing that a lot of leaders were being torn apart between doing what the right thing to do because it's the right thing to do, or doing the right thing because it's the popular thing to do and I don't want to lose my job and I'm afraid of upsetting anybody. And oh my God, culture change, and oh my God, this, and oh my God, that. It's like, hey, look, you became a leader. You're in leadership roles because you're the one who's going to make the tough decisions. And at the end of the day, whether you get fired or you stay or reprimanded, as long as you did the right thing because it's the right thing to do, then that's what you got to do. Right. And I think that leadership has gotten so watered down lately with people's perception of what leadership is. So leading through adversity, what we do is we mentor you, we coach you, we provide webinars and seminars, we provide one-on-one calls and seminars, and it was going really good. It was going really awesome. I mean, I think in 2019, I must have visited something like, I think I did like 111 keynote speaking engagements and seminars. Wow. And we were really excited. And unfortunately, this little pandemic thing that seemed to cause a nuisance came up and really kicked us in the butt. Yep. So we're gearing up again, trying to get that thing rolling again. And we've done a really good job with our web-based program, but I think it's more important to get back to that one-on-one base.
Yeah, getting back in person is really important, I think. I mean, you can do one-on-one by Zoom as well, but it's just not the same as being right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing now in retirement. I also, like I said, mentioned earlier, I'm working on my PhD. I'm in my dissertation phase. Hopefully I'll have that done by March of next year. We're at that point in the PhD where it's like, hey, you're on your own, take as much time as you need, do whatever. Well, I kind of taken that creed as like, take as much time as I need. Okay, I'll do it later. So now I got to get back on that. And then, of course, just finished writing a book that comes out July 4th. It's called Unmasking Leadership, What They Don't Tell You About Leading. And it goes hand in hand with our Leading Through Adversity campaign.
Sounds really interesting. Do you take anyone into Leading Through Adversity?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got right now we've got about 62 clients. Everything from brand new entrepreneurs to a couple of CEOs, vice presidents. I've got about 17 police chiefs from around the country that, we get together and we kind of just bounce off ideas. We brainstorm. They get an inspirational every morning. They wake up to an inspirational email, on leadership. They've got access to give me a phone call. One of the things that I discovered when I was a police chief is that a lot of the times I had to make a decision, or I wanted to implement a new program or community-based program that I knew my officers weren't going to understand. I knew they weren't ready for the change, because there's two things cops hate, and that's change and the way things are. So everything just stays the same. So sometimes I needed somebody to talk to that wasn't within my realm, because if I talked to my number two guy, he was just going to tell me what I wanted to hear because, yeah, boss, I want you to fire me. Like, two, really? Yeah. And then number three, if I told him, then he was going to be the guy that was going to go leak it to everybody else. And then so you always needed that sounding board. So that's what we became. We became a sounding board. So we get a lot of, matter of fact, we have a couple of brand new superintendents of schools that are clients of ours that will call us and say, hey, look, and we got no fight in the game, and we got no, hey, you want to do it? Let me tell you why I think it's going to work. Let me tell you why I don't think it's going to work. I can compare it to this strategy that I did, and this is what I did. How about you try this? And it gives them the opportunity to sound it off onto someone that has really no skin in the game other than watching them succeed. So they know they're going to get the truth.
I was thinking about something and I've lost my train of thought on that one. You talk a little bit about, or you mentioned a couple of times, culture diversity, definitely a big topic with law enforcement. Do you find that it's a big topic just in general in your leadership?
Yeah. So, the funny thing is that in my 20 years in El Paso is a very diverse community. We've got high social economics to the very lowest social economics. We got highly educated to the least educated. We're just a very diverse community. So we're very accepting, very open city, I guess, and I had never really been exposed to racism and racial and culture issues until I left to become chief of police of an East Texas town that I went to for 3 years, and I was brought in to change the culture. And I always joke about it that the reason they hired me is that they couldn't hire a Caucasian because of the things they had just gone through. Because of the racial issues, they were never going to hire an African American, so they settled for the little caramel Mexican guy to come in and kind of fix things, So, we came in 2014 to a very racially divided community, which is what caused us to create, well, and I say we, I don't know why I always say we, I just like combining people, even though it was actually me. I created a program called No Colors, No Labels, which was a program designed to remove the preconceived notion that the community had that the police were racially motivated. And through that No Colors program was a grassroots program. And we try to break down the barriers by building relationships and we had these cultural awareness meals because the only reason people are racist is because they don't know, they fear what they don't know. And once you get to know each other and you realize that you and me, as different as we look, we have more in common than anybody else on God's green earth. We have 2 eyes, we have a nose, we have a mouth, we bleed red, we have hearts, we have lungs. Okay, we have a different ancestry. You're not, while we may be generational Americans, our ancestry comes from here, from there, or from here. We're all immigrants at some point, but we're just all afraid to accept it and deal with the fact that, we're all what makes up America. We're all what makes up the world, right? So in general, I really did feel it. I think that I didn't feel it because of where I was. I was so isolated until I left that now I was the outsider. I was the first minority police chief in a majority city where everybody was Caucasian. Yeah, the African Americans were looked at as third-rate generation. I had never heard the N-word thrown around so much in my entire life. When I got there, I was even referred to as the greasy Mexican, the spick, the drug lord. I was like, yeah, what in God's green earth is going on here? And I think what happened, and this goes back to leadership, people have diluted what leadership is. And I don't want to get into politics, whatever side you're on, this side or that side. But, in, I guess, what was it, 2016, 2017, whatever, the tide turned. And, we had a candidate that was open, that talked openly about racism and it brought that monster out. But we had done a good job of hiding the monster. It's kind of like it was there, but we kind of like, and he made it okay to where it was okay to come out again. And all the work we had done through civil rights and everything that we'd done, all of a sudden took a 20-year turn. And now we're behind the curveball trying to fight it. And I used to think it was in the police world because I'm associated in the police world. So I just thought it was with us. But in reality, now in the private sector, you start seeing it. And it's not just, and it's just not a cultural issue against minorities. It's a cultural issue with everybody because minorities don't like Caucasians. Caucasians don't like minorities. African Americans don't like Hispanics. Everybody has this preconceived notion as to why we don't like each other. But when it's time to say why we really don't, everybody goes, well, I don't know. So, yeah, I think that unfortunately it's reared its ugly head again. It's everywhere. And we have to admit it. Everybody says, oh, that's not a real thing. Okay, well, COVID's not a real thing. Some people say, oh, this isn't a real thing. That's not a real thing. Everything is open to interpretation. Everybody is stuck on, my opinion is the only one that matters. And everybody seems to have forgotten about what's important, the facts, the facts, science, everything. It's there. The proof is there. So that's one of the things that has me real concerned, for our future generations is that we took a 20, 30 year spin back and now we got to figure out how to put that ugly monster back to bed because we're never going to get rid of it.
Probably not. hopefully we can make some changes though as time goes on. One of the things that you mentioned, everybody's afraid of what they don't know, and that's a pretty common thread, pretty common idea everywhere. So in terms of people making their way to retirement and the idea that like your friend in law enforcement who doesn't want to retire because he doesn't know what he's going to do, what do you think that we can do as a community, as a group of people heading towards retirement to make it more obvious that it's not really something to be afraid of?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is education. It starts back when I was a police chief. I implemented a program called financially stable, and I might as well have been trying to pull your teeth out because nobody wanted to talk about retirement. Yet, I can tell you, I can think back to my first day as a rookie out on the streets, thinking that I was going to be a cop for the rest of my life. That I was never going to get to retirement age. Well, here I am. And if you don't have a plan, if you don't have, some people, you especially like young officers, you tell them, hey, you know what, take $100, invest it into a 401k, invest it into a diversified account, invest it into something. Every paycheck, you get 26 paychecks, that's $2,600. From day one to 20 to 30 years from now, you'll be sitting on a beautiful nest egg. I don't want to talk about that. That's a long time from now. And I think that's the main issue that we miss is the education part. And I think it starts back all the way into education. I mean, your high school education. I get it, history, math, all this stuff is important, but we really need to teaching people life skills so that they can be prepared when they come out to the real world. And then when they go into their second life of retirement, and it's all about education. Some people are afraid to retire because they don't have that nest egg, but then what is enough of a nest egg? I mean, you think about it nowadays, everyone's like, I wish I had $1 million. Why? You'll be broken in 6 years, especially if you don't know how to take care of that money. $1 million ain't anything now, not that I have $1 million either. So, but it's just all about education. We got to get our community educated about retirement. Just like as much time as we spend on harping on education, we've spent a lifetime telling everybody, you got to go to college, you got to get a bachelor's, you got to get a master's, you got to get a PhD, you got to go to school. And if you look at it now, some of the most popular and wealthy people are people who don't even have a college degree, are influencers on social media, are social media gurus, and they're building multi-million-dollar businesses on a social media platform. Yet you stop and you look at it, you try to get any freight, if you're like, a logistics or a grocer or anything like that, any freight move, you can't find a truck driver to move your load. And everyone's going, why are the prices going up? Well, because now I have to pay a truck driver 60 cents a mile instead of 30 cents a mile because they're so limited and I can't find any. And, one of the things that our educational system has refused to do is to adapt to the times of change, like right now, trades, welders, plumbers, solar people, we're in such dire need and the demand is so high. But yet we still keep harping on traditional education. And I can say that because I'm working on a PhD. I thought to me, I'm one of that guys that, traditional education is going to get you far. Well, you know what? If I knew how to weld, I wouldn't be paying that guy who's welding my fence back together. I think it equates to like $70 an hour for him to do what he's doing for me. And I'm like, man, if I just know how to go, bzz, 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 I could have done it myself. So yeah, it's all about education.
I guess, excuse me, things like Adulting 101 would have been a good class to get started somewhere in school so that, they start teaching us those life skills and how to plan for the future instead of just get an education, get a job and do it for 40 years.
Well, I remember being in high school and I took a home economics course where they showed me how to balance a checkbook. I think I even learned how to sew a button on a shirt. It was life skills for an adult, for when you became one. Well, that's the thing of the past. They don't do that anymore.
No, exactly.
I found it kind of strange when my older son, who's now 22, I asked him, I said, hey, I need you to sign this form. and he prints his name, and I really lost it with him. I'm like, I said sign. He says, that's how I sign. I said, do you not know how to curse? He's like, Dad, they never taught us that.
Yep, exactly.
And then my middle son, same thing. I got mad at him because he didn't know how, he doesn't know how to sign. And I'm like, so I guess no one's going to be able to read the Constitution of the United States anymore at some point.
Yep, that's it's amazing what they don't learn now, and yet you can plunk a 4-year-old in front of a computer and they can do everything.
Yeah, I mean they could basically hack into the Pentagon without even knowing, like, what the heck did you just do? So yeah, but I think you have to have a plan for retirement. You got to be looking forward to it because it sneaks up on you before you know it, and it's here. And,
exactly.
And if you don't know, if you don't have I look at it this way: every time I took a job somewhere, you know, I mean, other than my first career, which I knew I was gonna, you know, even in my first career, I always said, I'm not staying here more than 20 years. I need 20 years to retire. I'm gonna stay 20 years, and I'm gonna exit. Well, I prepared myself. I got my bachelor's, I got my master's. I prepared myself. I moved up the ranks. I knew that I was going to be able to exit out and take on to a new transition as a chief. And, you know, I'd always been an entrepreneur, so I always had that behind me. And I've owned, prior to this, I've owned 2 different restaurants. I owned an independent wrestling company. So I always knew that there was something else other than just being a cop for me. But I had an exit strategy. I knew what I was going to do. And a lot of people don't do that. And that's where they get tied up.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I was just speaking to someone yesterday, actually, excuse me, who said that most entrepreneurs don't have an exit strategy. They don't plan for retirement. They just kind of think whatever they're doing is going to take them through forever. And it's just not really going to be that way.
Yep.
So it's been great talking with you. I think we'll wrap it up shortly. You mentioned you've got a book coming out in July. So at this point, I guess it's on the shelves somewhere, Unmasking Leadership.
Yeah, so July 4th, I don't know when this show will air, but it'll come out July 4th, the book. It'll be on the shelves on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Booksy. Of course, you'll also be able to order it off my website, jesusedicampa.com. If you do that, you'll get a hardcover copy for only $16. If you order it off of my website, it'll be autographed and shipped to you. Shipping's included. But I think it's a really good learning opportunity. I know a lot of people are probably going to say, well, who's this Jesus Campa dude that's going to write a book and tell me about leadership? Well, yeah, you're right. Who am I? But I think that if you actually read it and take the time to take the lessons that I've learned, a lot of people, what the book says is what a lot of people are afraid of saying. And it just gives you a new glimpse into what to expect if you're going to be a leader.
Perfect. And I think that's probably something a lot of people need to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you mentioned you've got a couple of websites. Your jesusedicampa.com.
Mm-hmm. And then leadingthroughdversity.com. Leading Through Adversity, you'll find, you know, our services, what we do, our programs, our different programs that we do, our different mentoring. You know, one of the things that we do that we, you know, and here's the funny thing is when I first threw it up there, everybody thought I was insane because everyone's like, no one's gonna pay for you to do this. And it's like, well, I wish I had that service. So I'm going to put it out there. And we're just surprised that it's our number one selling service, which is it's a interview panel, basically. And I'll tell you what, a lot of police chiefs and superintendents have taken taken advantage of the program. Basically, what we do is, you know, if you're a chief of police or candidate who's applying for a chief of police position somewhere, we do it through Zoom now, obviously, but we'll set up. There's like maybe 6 different people in the interview panel, one acting as the city manager, the mayor, city representative, a community member, and then we put you through the gauntlet. You know, ask you the questions that you're going to probably be asked during that interview, and this way you have the opportunity to polish it up and this and that, and we have the opportunity to tell you, look, you might not want to say that. You might want to put it in, I understand what you're saying, but you might want to put it this way. And through our program, we have successfully had 2 school superintendents become superintendents because of our program. And in the year that we've been doing it, year and a half, we've got 5 police chiefs that have actually been hired on because they went through our program. So we're really proud of that.
Wow, that's fabulous. And I'm
Yeah,
sure it's something that people would love.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really awesome because it's a practice. It's practice. I mean, you get
exactly.
to. I've been a chief of police twice. I've been a state director. I've been a chief deputy. So I know what they're going to ask. I know the questions I want to hear. One of the individuals just happened to be a former mayor, so he knows what he's going to ask. We've been lucky enough to be able to have a couple of actual city managers sit on the interview panel. And it's been a great resource for a lot of people.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Eddie. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and I think you've probably helped a lot of people along the way, and you've helped a lot of our listeners today.
Awesome. Well, whatever I can do, if you ever need me anything, jesusedicampa.com or Leading Through Adversity, there's a contact us. If there's anything we can do for you, just let us know.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of Beyond Retirement. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Are you ready to start rocking your retirement? Head on over to www.beyondretirement.ca/rocking it and sign up to plan out your own roadmap for retirement. Don't wait till it's too late.